Díagríomh go léir a cóide agus tá fáilte rót. Welcome to Be My Guest with me, Mary Honan on LíR Media TV, supporting the Samaritans, Limerick and Tipperary, Clare's Wish Foundation in Limerick, and Deel Animal Rescue in West Limerick. And my lovely guest today is a colleague of mine from many moons ago, Valerie O'Hanlon. And Valerie has set up Clarence Consulting, and she's going to talk all about it now with us and tell us. We'll start firstly, Valerie. You went through the Bunratty era, and now you've come out the other side and you've started a completely different career, but drawing on your strengths as a performer and drawing on your strengths as a talker, as a communicator. How valuable was that the Bunratty era to what you're doing now, or had it any impact at all?
Gia Grit Mary and August Gurav Magat for having me on the show today. So I'm delighted to be here with you. So I guess, look, I worked in the castles back in the early to mid 90s. And before that, even, Mary, I had worked in banking and that before that. And I suppose when we all get to a stage in our lives, whatever period of time it might be, when you sit down, you think, what am I doing here? And could I be doing something else?
Yeah.
And at the time, I actually sat down one Christmas and said, what do I love doing? And singing was on top of the list. So I said, well, how can I make this into something? And I went and I got myself a couple of singing lessons. And I'm a big believer in kind of getting started with something. And if you get started and you open up to opportunities, then things come your way. So I started after Christmas the singing lessons. And that January, there was an ad in the paper looking for singers and entertainers for Bunratty Castle. And I'd never seen it before. I'd never, living up in Dublin, I didn't know anything about Bunratty Castle or anything. Yeah. And so it was, it really struck me, it caught my eye, and I applied and I got it to my, sheer disbelief that I got it. Because I'd met loads of people at the interviews, and like loads of them had, bachelor degrees in music. They were operatic singers. And I was, I remember in the interview stroke audition, they asked me about my language skills, for dealing with tourists from European tourists and everything. And I said, je m'appelle Valerie, je suis une secrétaire. And that's what I was. I was a secretary. And probably that was all the French I had as well. So, But it got me over the line and it got me the job. And I always say what got me the job was a combination. I was a little bit of everything and put it all together. And it
Do you know, Valerie, I think sometimes that you've hit the nail on the head. People don't, think that they have to be absolutely spectacular at something. They have to be, they have to be the fabulous singer or the fabulous performer or the fabulous, but unless you're a little bit of everything, unless you're able to communicate, it's pointless being in a place like Bunratty Castle, because it's as much about communication with the guests, as much as babysitters half the time, people who have empathy. You have to have a little bit of everything. It's not good enough just to be a great singer and then walk into the dressing room after you've performed. You have to mix and mingle. And that's probably even more, Valerie, than the singing.
Yes, absolutely. That was the thing. You had to entertain. Yeah. And entertaining is more than just having a talent. It's being able to engage with people, as you said, empathy, warmth, and to be interested in people. And I suppose that's what I was. I had a bit of a curiosity about myself. I was interested in, and you mentioned there about me being a talker, and that's what it is. If you're interested in people, the amount of information that you can gain from, a short conversation with someone. And a lot of times those conversations are gone now because we're all in our phones and our screens. And so that conversation of somebody while you're out for a walk along the river, or you're standing at a bus stop, or you're, standing in the queue in Dunnes Stores, the art of conversation is gone. because we're all on our phones.
Yeah, and
So
it's like lately I have been pretty much addicted to listening to David Draymond from. Strangely enough, I would never listen to heavy metal.
okay.
It's the least piece of music I would listen to, but his version of The Sound of Silence has been listened to over 1.5 billion times. It's
Wow.
the most listened to version of any song ever written.
Right.
And I'm hoping to have him on my show.
Oh,
And
fabulous.
David Draymond, I mean, when you listen to the words of The Sound of Silence and you really dissect it, that's what Paul Simon was talking about, the dangers of the technological age, the dangers of putting music all on computers and away from people and taking the humanity out of it. And that's very much what, say, Bunratty, I think it was all about connection. It was all about the music and about the people and about conversing,
Yes.
and you've brought that into your new career.
So I have, and that's exactly what I brought into my new career. So, and I did other things along the way as well. But I suppose I got to my 40s kind of thinking to myself, is this what I'm going to be doing for the next 20 odd
Yes, my
years?
life, I know.
And
I'm still in that space.
yeah, and I got a little bit of a fright when I thought that this, what I was doing at the time, might be what I'd be doing for the next 20 years. So
Yeah.
I went back to what I did before I went to the castles, and I sat down with a piece of pen and paper again, and I wrote down what are my strengths. And this time came to me was my curiosity. Um, you mentioned it before we actually got started, that kind of confidence that I have, but that I also think that I have a little bit of a strength in building other people's self-esteem.
Hmm.
So I'm able to help other people build that confidence and self-belief in themselves.
But Valerie, do you think, like I do, that a lot of performers, a lot of us, I'm not saying you because certainly it's pretty obvious to anyone who knows you, Valerie, that you have a lot of confidence and you project a lot of confidence. And as I said to you off camera, I've looked at you in awe at events and thought, oh, do you know, if I wish I could be like Valerie, that could just burst into a room and take it over and sing and that. And many of us performers in that, we manage to create this impression of ourselves as being more confident than we actually are inside. And we're very focused on what people think of us rather than just being ourselves. And I admire that about you, and I've always admired it about you, and many other people that I've got to know along the line. And or you know, and I wonder, is that something that you can teach, or is it something innate?
I think there's a little bit of element of both to it, Mary.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little bit innate in that, you know, or it's a product of who you are and what you've
Yeah.
been through your life. It's a product of that. But I think that there are elements that we can improve about
Yeah.
ourselves as well. And you know, things that I look out for with people is the language that they use. So sometimes we diminish, you know, our abilities and we undervalue what it is that we've got. And I think sometimes if we use more positive language about ourselves,
Yeah.
then that gets in on our psyche and it lifts our levels of self-esteem and confidence if we begin to speak about ourselves more positively. And I think that that's the thing. I just and you know, when I said there as well about, you know, it's the product of what we are, I always remember my late mother. You know, I'm covered in freckles, you know, as you can see, or but I'm covered in freckles.
Yeah.
But but my mother used to say to me, you know,
I
freckles
love
were
freckles. I
yeah, I
love
love
freckles.
freckles. I love them. But my mother used to say to me that they were a sign of beauty.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
yeah. I think
so
they are.
she looked at them with a positive slant. Well, and it's funny because I actually had an interaction with somebody a couple of years ago where they were talking about their son being covered in freckles. And she
Yeah.
said, you know, that he hates them. And she said he covers up and doesn't let them be seen. And she said, because I'm the same, she said. And she said, I don't let my freckles be seen.
You
So
bring that
I
into your
hate them. I hate them.
you pass that on.
Yeah, and she was passing it on to her
Great.
son, you know, whereas my mother passed on to me a positive reflection of what freckles
I
were,
had a cousin who
you know.
was covered in freckles, Lord rest her, she only died this year. And she used to be using lemon and everything to try and
Rub them
get
off.
rid of them and fade them out. And I used to say to her, Mary, I love your freckles. I hadn't a freckle that was
Yes.
ever known. And
Yeah.
I used to so want freckles because I used to think
Yes.
once they grow together
Yeah.
during the
Yes.
summer, they're going to be really tanned.
And yeah, no, it doesn't
One
work.
giant freckle.
It doesn't work like that. You just go red and redder and then white again. But I suppose what I'm saying is it's the language that you use and it's the things that we're taught along the way. And so if you look at things in a positive light, you know, one person's perspective against somebody else's.
Yeah,
And if you can use positive language to describe yourself and describe your strengths and your abilities and have that belief about yourself, then the confidence comes through. I mean, we're all not going to be up performing, you know,
yeah.
all the time. But at the same time, you can be quietly confident and have it's about valuing what
Yeah.
it is that you've got, you know.
And I suppose, Valerie, at the very core of it, you don't have to be a really confident person to do what you're doing, your
No.
career path. You have to be empathetic above
Mm-hmm.
all, and you
Mm-hmm.
have to be, I suppose, a good listener.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody who's had, I suppose, a life experience that you can understand what the other person has. There's nothing worse than speaking to somebody about something and you know in your heart they've never experienced anything even remotely like you're talking about, and they've never gone through those financial difficulties or the challenges that you have, but that doesn't mean that they can't be empathetic.
No, no. So in some ways you're right in that, you know, life experiences can definitely be useful in the role of a coach. But at the same time, you don't need to have experienced those
Yeah,
things. Because what you're holding for the person is space.
yeah,
And what you said there about listening. So listening is really the most important thing. And it's about relating what you hear back to them. Because sometimes when you hear it said to you, you know, it makes more sense. It gives you clarity, and it makes you think about, maybe I might say it back to them, the same thing but different. And then when they hear it like that, they kind of, oh, I didn't think of it like that.
you
You
become
know,
the
or
sounding, you become the
a
sounding
sounding
board.
board. Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and that's what I would say is, you know, coaching is you're like their listening partner. You know, you're listening, and you're listening not for what just they're saying, but also for what they're not saying. So
You're
that's
their
a,
inner voice,
yeah,
basically, and that almost like a mirror. They're
yes.
projecting their ideas and their thoughts onto you, and you're reflecting back. So when they actually hear it back, it becomes more three-dimensional, if you like.
Yes,
The
yeah,
idea is no longer just an idea in their head.
their head,
It
exactly.
suddenly has been one. I think sometimes when you speak about something, an idea, you bring it to life.
Yes,
And
yeah.
then when it comes back to you, it's almost like, well, I've said it now, I've put it out there, it's out in the ether, and I've got to it's manifested in some way. I think
Yeah, no,
some.
I do think so, Mary. I think if you put it out there, I'm a big believer in articulating it, voicing it, you know, through the spoken word or writing it down. So, but get it out of your head
And it
because
comes back to what you said at the very
yeah,
start, that you actually took the chance. You decided, I want to be a singer, and you went away and you took the steps to do voice training, and
yes,
then took the giant leap to actually
yeah,
come down to Shannon, to
yes,
Moratti.
yeah,
Uh, and then that put you on the path, but you could have still been at home at,
yes.
at 40 years of age thinking, I'd like to be a singer. But until you take that step.
You have to take a step. So, you know, that's the thing about, you know, you mentioned manifesting things. I do believe in that.
Yeah.
But you have to do some actions to kind
Yeah.
of help it along its way, you know. So, and I always tell that joke as well about kind of winning the lotto. And the guy goes in praying to the Sacred Heart to, you know, please
Oh
let me
yeah.
win the lotto.
I do
Please
that
let me
all the
win
time.
the lotto. And eventually the Sacred Heart shouts at him one of the days. He said, would you ever buy a ticket?
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of like me. I've never bought a ticket once.
Yes. So, you know, it's not going to happen unless you actually take some sort of a step
Yeah. But
towards making it happen.
But you're one of the only 40 coaches in Ireland with the PCC, the professional certified coach credentials, and
Yes.
you founded Clarence Consulting in 2014. Firstly, where did you come up with the name Clarence?
Oh, well, now that's a story in itself. So I wanted it, I suppose the whole idea of me wanting to have my own business was I wanted to make a difference. But
Yeah,
I wanted to make it, I wasn't into these kind of grand gestures. I'm not, I'm never going to kind of be a Bob Geldof or anything. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to do it through kind of small gestures because I
yeah,
think, as I said, even just standing, talking to somebody in a queue, that and having a conversation with them, that could have a profound effect on somebody without you actually realizing it. So that was, I suppose, what was in my head. And one of my favorite movies is called It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart. And in it, he wishes he was never born, and the
yeah,
guardian angel takes him back over his life as if he'd never been born. And he realizes that the small things that he did throughout his life had made profound effects on the people that lived around him.
yeah.
And so Clarence was the name of the guardian angel in It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh, I was, I've never, I think I've seen It's a Wonderful Life
Mm,
many years ago, but I must actually watch it again.
mm,
But it when you were talking there, it reminded me of I suppose in Hebrew, in the Talmud, they say to save one life, you save the whole world entire. And
yes.
that to me is like, you take one step. If you can make a difference in one
Mm,
person's life,
mhm.
you've made a difference in the world.
World, yeah, absolutely.
And your small step, as you call it,
Mhm,
I would call it
mhm.
a giant leap, because it's a leap of faith.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
You've taken that leap of faith into the wonderful world of self-employment,
Mhm, mhm.
and you don't know whether it's going to be successful, and
No.
you just hope against hope. Do you
Mhm.
think that that's your psyche anyway, to to say, I want this now, so I'm going out there to get it?
Yes. And I don't know whether um I don't know whether I felt it in such a big way. It just seemed like it was the next natural step for me. So I wanted to do something different. And I knew that I didn't want to put myself back within an
Yeah.
organizational setting. And I suppose it's something that a lot of people are feeling at the moment, when they've been at home, have this flexible kind of work pattern
Mm.
for the last 18 months. And a lot of people don't want to go back putting themselves into that organizational setting, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And so it just seemed like the most natural step for me to do that. And sometimes I don't think about things too strongly, in the sense of I don't look at
I
I
don't
don't
either.
I
I just
don't look too much at what could go wrong. I kind of just say, look, let's do it and we'll
Yeah,
see what happens. We'll figure it out along the way.
I'm a bit
And,
like that.
self-employment isn't easy, especially when you're starting out, and some months in the beginning, the phone never rang. And in the
That's
beginning,
almost like, sorry for interrupting you,
sure.
Valerie, that's almost like the blank page when you're writing.
Mm,
When you're looking at a blank page and you just don't know the first sentence, if you could get the first sentence out, you'd be fine. It's
yes.
probably like that when you're self-employed, waiting
Yeah.
for the first customer who will
Yes.
then spread the word and
Hmm.
getting the name out there. But
Hmm. Hmm.
my
And
God,
that
it
it
must be fulfilling when it finally succeeds.
when it finally succeeds, and definitely I've been very, and I say this not lightly, but I do believe in luck. So I do think I've been very lucky along the way as well, in that I've opened my back to the curiosity and back to the conversations with people. You open yourself up
Yeah.
and you talk to people, and people have been very good to me along the way in sharing their expertise, giving me help and support, mentoring me, and sending me clients. So that's been very useful. So I think, when you can engage with people and people warm to you, and people, see that you're coming from a place, with a good heart, then people will will react to that, and business comes then in that case.
So what happens on a typical day, Valerie? A client comes to you and they could be coming to you about any number of subjects. Firstly, the lunch and learn.
Okay, so I've done lunch and learns around helping you to create a plan for your career. So I do the 5 steps to taking control of your career. And also I do one on reflective journaling. I'm a big believer in reflective journaling. So helping people with some prompts around what they could be writing, what they could be journaling about, and how useful that is to them. Especially the reflective element, I think looking back to see how did we do that, what did we do well, and how can we do it again, is very positive. I also do a piece on working and playing to your strengths. So I'm a strengths profile accredited trainer as well. So I work with people on determining what their strengths are and helping them to use those strengths to move their careers forward. On a one-to-one basis, then I work with people around changing jobs, people that aren't happy in what they're doing at the moment.
Very big step, isn't it, for people?
Yes, absolutely. And I suppose that's what I try to help them with, is so that it's not a big jump. It's more of, and you mentioned there as well about a big leap, that I took a big leap. So I think when you've planned it out, it's not so much a leap, it's more of a little step. It's like
how important do you think it is to plan out, given that
hugely.
you have seemingly done everything without really planning, if you like? Your own life trajectory has been not planning, apart from deciding to go and get your voice trained and then going into Bunratty. But they're all leaps of faith, if you like. How important is that kind of almost keeping a diary?
Okay.
I want to do this, and what do I need to get this done? This is my goal.
Yes.
And what do I need to get to that goal? I would presume that that's what you teach people.
Yes, I work with them to do that. So even though I suppose it seems as if I haven't planned it, there is planning in between that, So things like I took a year out, and I made a conscious decision to upskill in a couple of different areas. From a networking perspective of starting your own business, I made a conscious decision to get out networking with people and surrounding myself with people that could help me. So I have planned out things, and I would, at the beginning of every year, I would make my own goals and goals for my own personal and professional life at the beginning of January every year. And yeah, I do. Yeah,
almost like bucket lists.
I do. Yeah, I suppose the bucket list ones would be kind of at the end of it, but the ones at the top would be the month to month kind of things that I want to achieve for this year. Yes, no, I would.
Gosh, you're fiercely organized. I fall into life.
Yeah, no, and I would review that then throughout the year. So that's what the reflective journal is so that you have all those kind of things in the one place, and you would go back to it and look and mark off and see, well, how far along am I on these goals, and what do I need to do to achieve them by the end of the year? So, and I would review them then around next month.
And if you haven't achieved them, Valerie, what happens?
Well, I'd ask myself why. Well, no, I'd ask myself why. Why have I not achieved them? And I would reflect back on why I didn't achieve them, and what do I need to do to achieve them? What do I need to change so that I can achieve them? And they'll go back on the list for next year then again, if they're valid. If they're valid goals that I really need to achieve.
You may realize at the end of it that they weren't for you, that they were goals that you had at the start of the journey, but by the time you got, they were less relevant.
Yes, exactly. They could be less relevant.
Or no longer relevant.
No. And what I would always try to do as well is to link them to my values. So what's important to me? So, in one sense, there may be no point in putting on my goals that I want to, expand my business and hire 3 people, for next year, when really maybe one of my top values is having a balanced work-life balance and only keeping my work to 4 days a week. So you have to kind of look and see what's the values, or my value of wanting to make a difference. Then there's no point in me kind of taking on a piece of work that's not going to reflect back the kind of values that I've got,
So I'd come to you now, for instance, and I'm all over the place as to whether and how I can move my career on to the next level, or completely change. Just say I wanted to change my career. I'm working in the bank, and I want to become a musician. Well, not in these times at the moment, but or I wanted to become a counselor or a career coach. Do you consider it similar to counselling?
No, so I would be very clear about that at the beginning, because I'm trained coach, and I'm a professional coach. I follow ethics and guidelines, and I do CPD every year for that as well. But I'm not any kind of a clinician, and I don't, the counselling space is kind of, like, as from what I can gather, is more kind of dealing with the issues and the things of maybe that have gone on in your past and how they affect the present. Whereas coaching is very much in the present and looking to the future.
Exactly. So I come to you and I've decided I want a complete career change. What does Valerie O'Hanlon do at the start? What are the steps?
Okay.
So
the steps I would take is that I would work with you. Firstly, I'd get a feel for who you are. And actually, even prior to you coming to work with me, we'd do a chemistry call so that you would feel comfortable talking to me, and you can ask me some questions about how I work and what the process involves. And I'd get a feel for what your issues are. And we would see if we both feel comfortable with each other. So it's really important that you feel comfortable and safe in the space that I'm going to create for you. So that's first, before we'd even start. So then we would look at then getting a real picture of where you're at. So kind of looking at what is happening in the present with regard to professional, personal, everything. We get a good picture of where you're at. And then we would look at, well, what is it that you're looking for? What do you want to be different? So if that's, as you said, somebody going from banking into a musician, well, then we'd look at, well, what would your life look like if you were a musician? What would be different? How would that fit into who you are and your family life, etc.? And then we would look at, well, how does that fit into your values? So we would really determine what your values are. And when they come out and we see how they're demonstrated, or how you would like them to be demonstrated in the future, then you get a lot of clarity when looking through your values. Okay? And what your values do is help you to make the decisions that you need to make. So when you're making a big decision, then you can say, well, is that decision, does that fulfill my values if I make that decision? If I go down this path or that path, is it going against them or is it going with my values? So we would look at that. Then we'd look at your strengths. So the strengths is a big thing. So, we've all heard the expression, play to your strengths. So if you want to become a musician, well, do your strengths support that? So if you want to be a guitarist, how nimble are your fingers?
How good are you?
How good is your ear? How good is your ear? And
do you think you can sing when in actual fact everyone is trying to think, I need to leave the room now?
And we'd also kind of explore whether, is it that you want to have music in your life, and, what will that music give you if you had it in your life? But the strengths are really important. And we would look at, are you organized? Are you, have you got kind of strategic awareness around how to sell yourself as a musician? Are you willing to put yourself in the spotlight? So, we talked about that, about me wanting to be out there. I'm, the life and soul, and I'll put myself front and center. But a lot of people don't feel comfortable doing that. So how comfortable would you feel putting yourself in that spotlight, as a profession?
Or working in a career that's not 9 to 5.
Exactly. Yeah.
It doesn't allow really very much space for a family life.
Yes. So, and even if you take it, not a musician, but say if you were taking a job, you wanted to change to a job where you'd be just sitting at a screen all day, 9 to 5 in your box room. And maybe you might need that people interaction. Maybe you do like the spotlight. And then there'll be a disconnect if you're stuck in a box room all day, every day. You'll be miserable if that strength is not being used, It's
an important service, Valerie, because I think people, again, going back to jumping in and taking leaps of it, some people really at their heart, they want to be something. But if they stepped back and looked at it objectively, they would say to themselves, well, I like my downtime and I like my I like being at home with my family. And I love to sing, but but I couldn't be out 7 days a week singing, or at nighttime when my husband is coming in. And when you sit down with Valerie O'Hanlon and discuss all of this, you realize, well, maybe that is the passion, or the love I have, but it's not a career that I could make work with my family life, or make work with my own personal life. I'm a night person. I could be up all night. And then some people could be up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I think that's insanity. But they mightn't be able to do work that would mean that they were out all night.
Exactly, yeah. So you have to kind of look at those things, but at the same time, you might discover, well, yes, actually, I do, want to be doing those things, and that is what I want to do. But then you might also need to look at the financial element of it. There's a lot of different things that you might need to take into account if that's what you want to do. So as we said, taking the first step is what's important. So then what we would do is we would say, well, if this is where we are, this is what we want to do, and now we've decided, yes, we do want to be a musician. Well, what are the steps that we need to take to get there? And so I would work them through their plan and their steps. And I can either hold their hand as they do that, or they can go off and do that themselves and dip in and out to me as a support along the way then as well.
Yeah.
So that they get to their journey, their destination as such.
At what stage, Valerie, I know you said when you reached your 40s, you knew that you had, what was it that actually drew you to this area?
Coaching. So when I started my business back in 2014, there was no coaching in it. It was HR consultancy. And because I had done a degree in HR, I had been working in HR through my 30s. And what was it? So I wasn't enjoying the HR consultancy. So though I wanted to work for myself, I loved the training element, back to the spotlight. I like being at the top of the class and sharing the knowledge and being with people. And I wasn't enjoying the HR consultancy piece. You ended up getting all the disciplinary things. People only called you when they had a problem. And I didn't really like being the problem solver. So, but I got involved with one company who were doing some development training with their HR team. And they had a number of coaches working on a project. And they asked me to be one of those coaches. And I said, well, I'm not a coach. I've never coached anyone before. And they said, yeah, but we like you and we think you'd be good at it. Will you give it a try? So I Googled coaching and I got a few questions to start and a few questions to end. And I thought, sure, I'll wing it in the middle and see what happens. And in actual fact, it all worked. And the people I coached engaged with the process and had actually some good results from it as well. So I thought, but this was actually quite fun and I enjoyed doing that.
Yeah.
So I went off and I sourced a coaching course because I said I couldn't sell myself as a coach with just a few ideas from Google. So I went and I did a coaching course. It was through LIT and a company called Coaching Development in the UK. And it was located in Portlaoise. And I did that for 6 months. And I got my coaching qualification. And then when you become a coach, it's not a regulated industry, but there are different bodies that you can align yourself with. So I'm aligned with the International Coaching Federation. And as part of their, I suppose, progression, that once you have 100 hours of coaching, you can apply through quite a rigorous process to get an associate certified coach. And then the next level is professional certified coach. And then the third level is master certified coach. So I'm in the middle, I've got PCC, professional certified.
And you were a financial planner as well. So I'm thinking while you're talking there, I'm saying to myself, my goodness, everything that you have done in your life has led you to this, really. I mean, we go back again to Bunratty and the communication and the ability to communicate. That was really, I suppose, developed there even stronger because of the fact that you had to be 100% on at all times.
All the time, yeah.
All the time, no matter how unwell you felt or how down you felt for those 8 whatever hours you were there, 2 shows, you had to be on. And you've brought that in your financial planning and your ability to your confidence and the fact that you worked in a bank. So you're very analytical, but also creative. So I think the analytics and the creativity have found this perfect
Yes. And I would have always, it's interesting you say that now, Mary, because I would have always put myself into that kind of, that side of the brain with the numbers and the figures and the data, and I would never have put myself in the creative side other than the singing. I'd have never put myself in the creative side. And since I've had my own business, that side has developed.
Yeah, because
that creative
you are
side
creating,
really developed.
you're creating a business, and you're creating careers, if you like, through your business.
Yes,
you're creating other people's careers, but you're also creating and developing your own. So it is,
and you're trying to inspire others to be creative as well, to think creatively and to step outside of their norm and of that box that we put ourselves into.
Think laterally, because an analytical person really thinks very much down the line.
Straight down the line.
It's A, B, C to get to D.
Yeah. But actually, if you put the two of them together, that analytical and that creative side, if you put them together, then the results that you can get are like twice as good.
I don't think I have any analytical side.
Yeah.
I think the analytical side to me has died.
It can be reborn. It can be reborn.
Oh, I think I'm 100% creative. I have all these dreams, and I'm a dreamer, and I could make people millions, but I can't make myself 10 euros because by the time I've thought of it and planned it all in my head, the time has passed.
Yes,
it's over. But yet when it comes to a computer issue or editing, and I can find ways around it. So that's probably an analytical.
That is, absolutely problem solving.
I'd spend hours working out a problem on the computer, how to design this or how to design that. But maths over my head. Absolutely over my head. I mean,
so it's interesting you said there, you could make money for other people, but make yourself the money is harder. And you find that sometimes with people that work for themselves, and especially in the coaching field, that people give away their services for free too often.
I do that all the time.
Too often. Okay.
It goes back to my childhood when I'd be drawing or painting, and people would say, "Oh, I love that. Will you do one for me? How much will it cost?" And before I'd even have my mouth open, my mother would have said, "Oh, she'll do it for nothing for you. She likes doing that. That's a hobby for her." So straight away, and with maths, even when the nuns would say Mary's very good at maths, my mum would say, "She's not, sister, she's fooling you. She's good at counting and adding up in her head, but she has no patience." So she convinced me, like your mother convinced you Freckles were lovely. My mum convinced me I was bad at maths. And I carried that through my entire life, and I don't think I was as bad as she thought you were. As she made me out, because she did my maths for me.
So that's what we would look at in the coaching as well, and not to go into the past too much, but certainly we'd look at the stories that we tell ourselves and the patterns that we've created. So sometimes people come because something's not working out and they just want to change. But if we don't figure out what it is that's not working, then it won't work in the next place either. So you have to figure out what's not working first, and then
it has to be something about you as a person that it's not working. It mightn't be working because you're not 100% engaged,
aligned with it,
and aligned with it. It might be something that you think you'd like,
but
when you actually sit down with Valerie O'Hanlon and talk about it, you realize it really isn't. It's a hobby, but it's not something that I could spend the rest of my life working at or making money out of.
Yes,
I
yes.
presume you'd go into that and say, look,
We would, yeah, we'd
how
look at
much
all
money
that.
can you make from this?
And that's part of the planning. So that's part of the not jumping, of taking the small steps, because you and a lot of people are pulling back from, that they feel that they don't need all the money that they're earning, that they can get by on less, and that the cost benefit of maybe coming down in income, the benefit is there because they're getting a better lifestyle, they're getting more fulfillment, they're getting more peace of mind, and inner peace from doing something different. So we would look at that, as part of it all as well.
Now, Valerie, with COVID and that, and with the lockdown, one, I suppose, how much of a change have you seen in people looking to change their careers? I'm thinking back when the minister said that musicians should think about changing their career, and I thought that's like asking somebody to stop breathing, because singers and musicians they'd work mainly for nothing, because it's something that's almost spiritual with them, that they have to sing even if they weren't earning. It's not a career for some. It's career for some, but not for many in the music industry. And it's like telling them not to breathe, to tell them to go into an office and work every day. But some people have decided through COVID to change their careers, or and the benefits. Okay, Zooms and all that, they're not personal. There's nothing replaces the physical touch, but they have been profoundly valuable. It has been profoundly valuable as a way of keeping in contact. How have you seen a big surge in people changing their careers since COVID, and have many of them decided to use, say, the internet and to use online um, uh,
Yes.
businesses more than actually, and realize that they don't really need the office. They don't need to be paying rent in an office if they're a small business. They can do it just as easily at home. Or have many people just decided, no, I prefer the human contact?
So I think there's a couple of things there, Mary, in the sense of people in jobs. There's a lot of people changing, so there's this new term has been coined, the great resignation. So people are handing in their notice, whether they've got jobs to go to or they don't. You used to always say, never give up a job until you have another
Have a
job,
job.
but people aren't paying any attention to that now. They're leaving, and they're probably finding something else pretty quick. Or they're just taking time to reflect on where they are and how they might regroup and see what their next move is. So there's definitely a lot of people out there that are changing, looking for change around their jobs. There's plenty of jobs out there. Employers are only screaming out for good employees. So it's definitely an employee market. From a sense of small business people, I did last week was National Women's Enterprise Day, organised by the local enterprise offices. And I did some of the networking around that last week. And it was just fantastic to get an opportunity to network with other small business owners, because we've missed that over the last 18 months, that networking, that one-to-one conversation, that curiosity, that questioning of finding out what people are doing, how people are. And it was just fantastic to do that last week and to meet so many new people. And I've already got a couple of coffees set up with people I met last week on that, for next week. So that's been great. So I think small business owners, I think, though happy to work on Zoom and provide their services that way, want to get out and about, back meeting people, possible opportunities, and just having connection. And networking and having connections with other people is definitely what people are looking to do, as soon as possible. I suppose through the last 18 months, once it was safe to do so. I have always tried to do that, is keep in touch with different people, meet other coaches maybe for a coffee, some that might live locally, and we'd have a socially distanced coffee or whatever over the last year and a half.
You're in
So
Castleconnell.
I'm in Castleconnell, yes. So plenty of places to go for coffee out here, or in Castletroy or Bird Hill or Killaloe. So, you know, those kind of places, it's great being able to get out and meet with other, whether they be coaches or other business people. So so I think people want that personal connection. It's great on Zoom. Zoom works perfectly for my coaching. So, you know, I used to meet people face to face, but since last March
Yeah.
2020, I haven't been
2020,
doing
you
so.
went, you've done most of you've
All my
done
coaching has been
all coaching
online.
online.
Yeah.
But you know, Valerie, I was talking to a lady the other day who's a psychotherapist, and she was one of the founders of Pieta House,
Okay.
and fabulous. And she set up now her own. She left Pieta House and she set up her own psychotherapy clinic in Dublin, along with two other ladies. But she was talking about how the amount of people, she said, who actually say to her, look, I love coming in and talking, but
Yeah.
could we just do maybe some sessions on Zoom, or some
Right.
sessions online, and she said it's also opened her up to the American market,
Yes.
and to Australia and New
Yeah.
Zealand and Canada.
Yeah.
And she said she has clients now, she said, from all over the world.
Yes.
There's, before all of this,
Yeah.
and before pre the advent of Zoom and everything like that, people were tending to rely solely on people from Limerick, or
Yeah, the
from
local.
outside of Limerick, who travel, get into the car and travel to Limerick or Castleconnell to meet Valerie. But now you can get people from all over the world.
From all over. So the world has opened up, and every business is global now. You know, so I have another piece, I suppose, another piece of my business is, because I suppose I have a bit of a profile on LinkedIn and different social media, other coaches would come to me asking for advice about how do I do this, or, you know, what are you doing there? And so I actually set up a workshop then for new coaches. So I do a 5 steps to starting your own coaching practice. So I've done 2 of those workshops this year. The last one was just 2 weeks ago, where I'm sharing my own experiences and my knowledge, helping other coaches get started, because it can be a minefield, you know, in the beginning, and sharing with them the challenges I faced and how I overcame them, so that it doesn't take them as long to get going with their coaching practice. But the one I did the other week, I had 10 people at the workshop. 3 of them were from the UK, and one of them was a Lithuanian guy living in France, and it was online. Yeah, and the rest were Irish from all over Ireland. So, you know, you can open yourself up hugely to a global perspective.
But in a sense, it's all taking this, it's going full circle as well. You're back to meeting the tourists, if you like, or the people from all different countries of the world, and you're engaging and you're communicating and you're talking. What is the next? What is on the agenda for you? You obviously have your life, as you say, planned out month by month. I haven't even thought of an hour's time what I'm going.
No, I don't, and I don't want it to sound as if I have it all. I don't, not to that extent, but I have a kind of an overall picture of what I wanted to achieve this year, and I'll have achieved it, you know, so by November, December timeframe. So so actually I haven't looked at what I want to do for next year. It's kind of, I think I've done a lot over the last couple of years, and I suppose with the whole COVID piece and everything around that, I've kind of pulled back a little bit to, you know, refocus on where I'm going with my coaching piece. And I'll be 8 years in business in January.
Wow.
So,
but that's fantastic. Do you know what I mean? And do you find that a lot of your work is word of mouth?
It was word of mouth. Referrals. I've been getting a lot of referrals this year from people who I don't know. So like somebody will come to me, somebody will come and they'll say, oh, Mary Murphy told me about you, but I don't know who Mary Murphy is, you know. but
that's the
they're
power of the internet as
but
well.
it is the power of the internet, and it's the power of the profile that I've created,
Yeah.
or that they've been speaking to other people. And then I do get other coaches send people to me. My website, people come through that as well. And LinkedIn has been a big piece for me as well.
LinkedIn is marvelous. I've got a lot of guests for my shows, and that from LinkedIn, and it's amazing. You know, you just put messages out there, and people come back, or they don't.
Yes.
But you work as a volunteer coach with Connect a Coach.
Yeah, so it kind of came to an end there during the summer. So at the beginning of the pandemic, one or two coaches got together and decided that they were going to create this thing called Connect a Coach to provide free coaching for frontline and emergency workers. So they literally got it up and running overnight. And I volunteered as one of those coaches. So I had a number of clients throughout the year, and I suppose maybe 15 months that they had it up and running for. And it was great to be able to, I suppose, contribute in some small way towards what was going on, for the last year and a half, and to feel as if you were, back in the beginning when everyone was in it together, and you felt, well, I'm not in anything. I'm stuck in my house here, not doing anything to help anyone.
But that in itself was doing something.
That was it. Well, that's true too. But I was able to contribute in some small way as being part of that Connected Coach.
And you're a member of the West Coaching Circle. And you were highly commended in the ICF Ireland Awards ceremony in 2020.
Yeah, our coaching circle was. So it's a coaching circle is for coaches to come together and share our learnings, share our experiences, and give us a little kind of a safe space to talk about the things that might be happening to us. So it's like a support network for coaches. And it's very useful.
Do you think that being a coach, you have to, I mean, it's back again, everything goes back, I suppose, to the one thing, but do you think that being a coach, one has to have everything, has to be, I mean, if somebody came to me now as a coach and asked me about the financial side and financial planning, that would be just like,
no, you don't. It's funny because as a coach as well, we also do supervision to keep our practice professional, and again, an added support for any issues that we might be having in our coaching practice. And I had a supervision session earlier in the week, and one of the things I took away from that session was being comfortable not knowing.
Yeah.
So sometimes, we have to kind of sit with that actually we don't know. So we don't always have the answers. And, how do we find them out? That's, I suppose, and that's the whole piece of coaching is, well, if you don't have the answers to hand, then how can I work with you to find those answers out? So you have to be vulnerable in that sense as well with your client, that we don't know, and none of us know what we don't know. So you have to be comfortable not knowing sometimes.
It's safe to say you've probably decided now that you have finally found the career that has encompassed everything that you are, if you like, as a person, and all the life experiences that you've had, and people say, oh, I should never have done this, or I should never have done that. Like, I went to the art college first because I was good at art, and I thought, I got into the art college, so I'll do a degree in art and design, realizing then that this is not what I want as a career. I don't want to be an artist. I love writing, I love literature, and then I went down the literature road, and then I found out that literature was, and the area that I'm in now is where I want to be. But I realized that what the lessons I learned when I was in the art college were profoundly important, because they taught me the discipline that I had got from dancing anyway, from competition and everything, but they taught you to structure and to plan out what you were doing, like you're talking about, and to have a final piece up for your exhibition, even if it wasn't the way you wanted it, but it had to be finished, even if it meant staying up all night to do it. And it taught you that never just accept the first thing that you've done. Keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going, because what you've done now isn't going to be what the end product is going to be. So I did get lots of lessons from that, even though I'm not an art teacher or anything like that. But people do tend to say, oh, I wasted my life. I did 4 years in an art college, or I spent 4 years doing accountancy, and it's nothing. But it's the lessons that you've learned in those that you bring. I mean, you started off as the singer, and it's the lessons you learned as the singer, and the years you spent and then in the bank, and all of that you've carried along, and they have become years training, if you like, for what you're doing now.
For what I've done. But something you said there about kind of wasting, thinking that you've wasted something, or saying that was a waste, I shouldn't have done that. But it's about kind of, that's part as well of that confidence piece and value. So you say, well, what was the value that brought to me? So I may not be using it to, its fullest potential. But as you said, there's certain things that you can take from it that you've learned along the way. So it's valuing what you've done and not dwelling on it or regretting it, but maybe putting a line under it and saying, that's done. That's what I've taken from it. And now how can I take that and move on to the next thing?
Yeah, because I personally don't think that we do things willy-nilly. I think that at times in our lives, that's the perfect thing for us. That's the course. For me, at that stage, it was the right course for me, and it was a fantastic college, and I was privileged to get in, but it was right at that time. And then I moved on, and you move on and you move on, but I'm still at a stage, Valerie, where I don't know. I can't, I'm stuck. And I just envy people like you. I mean, I know what I want, but getting what I want is just, and I look at the Valerie O'Hanlons of the world, and I think, God, I wish I was I need to probably sit down and say, this is what I want to do now at the end of the month, but have done by the end of the month.
Well, it's about creating a picture of what life will look like, of what it is where you want to get to. So, you said there about, brings us on to the next stage and the next stage, but it's looking at what that destination is. What, you go on a trip to Dublin and you have to go to, I don't know, the RDS or something. You put it in the sat nav, and you know that little icon on the sat nav is telling you, you'll know when you get there, because it says that's where you are.
Destination. Unless you end up in a field like I did one day looking for Shrule, and I was 5.5 hours it took me to get from Limerick to Shrule. It's only 2 hours.
Oh my goodness.
The sat nav said you're at your destination, and I looked at a cow and I thought, that's not it.
If the sat nav works properly, but you get to that destination and you're there because it's telling you you're there. So that's the thing, is you want to know is where is it that you want to get to, and how will you know when you get there? That's the important question to ask yourself. And then go back, Mary, to, what are your strengths? What are the things that give you energy?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely know what I want. It's just getting it is just, in this country, is so difficult, because in many respects, a lot is very closed shop. Do you still find that, Valerie? Do you find that?
I have to say I haven't. Yeah, I have to say I haven't. And that's why I go back to, starting my business. I suppose coming sometimes from an organization where, I worked in an organization for a number of years where information was power, and it definitely was a closed shop. And if you didn't have the right information, then you didn't have any power, or didn't have any possibility of doing what you needed to get done. And when I left that and I started then on my own journey, my own business, I was really surprised by how open and sharing people were. And I suppose that's what I've tried to continue through my business, like my workshop for new coaches.
Yeah.
So I charge for it, but so I'm not giving it away for free or anything. But people did say to me, "What are you doing? Telling new coaches all your tricks and all your tips. Why would you be doing that? They're your competition." And I said, "Well, but other people have helped me
We
along
learn
the
from each
way,
other.
and we learn from each other. And, it's a big world out there. There's plenty of people looking for coaching. So, it's not that there's too many coaches. It's just people don't realize that they want those coaches yet, but they will. And I think everybody will be having a coach, in the near future. So, I
Like
think I
like
suppose
a
I've had
personal
that.
trainer.
Yes, exactly. So I think that's I suppose the attitude I've had, or the mindset I've had, is open. And so I have found, and definitely I came from that place where it was very closed and very frustrating and very, diminishing. I don't know what you call all the D words anyway, the things that brought you down,
Yeah.
being in that closed piece.
And
But
it is
I
diminishing.
don't know what,
It is,
yes,
Valerie. It
it's
is.
diminishing, of everything. But I have to say, I've flourished with this, and maybe it's the coaching arena. I don't know, and maybe it's not so much the working for yourself. Maybe it's more the coaching piece. But I found it a lot more open.
You have a lot of autonomy when you're
Yeah.
working for yourself. You can get
Mm,
up and you can dictate your own time,
mm,
your
mm.
own.
Yeah.
Before we
But then
go,
you've nobody else to blame, only yourself. That's the thing as well.
how important is it to know your value? And when it comes to, I'm thinking back on my mother saying, no,
Yes.
she'll do it for nothing. She'll do it for
Yeah.
nothing. I see my
Hmm.
paintings all, everywhere, and
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
thinking if only I had the money for that,
Hmm.
got the money for
Yes.
that. But how important is it to know your value? Because I think as Irish people, we tend to be very self-deprecating when it comes to charging for things, or
Hmm.
if somebody admires something on you, you automatically say, "Oh, thank you very much. That was only,"
Yeah.
instead of saying thank you.
Yes.
And it's almost like we apologize for
Yes.
having any knowledge or
Yeah.
being of value.
Mm.
How important it
Those
do you think
words,
it is?
only, or just, or little, that we put those in front of things that we use to describe ourselves, and we don't need them. They're superfluous to the sentence, to the meaning of what it
Yeah,
is that we're talking about. And that's what I was talking about the language that we use.
yeah,
So if we continue to say to ourselves that I'm only a new coach, or I'm only a career coach, or I'm only, a presenter, or a producer of a TV program, only this, or it's only online, or it's only this, then you're hearing that. You're hearing yourself saying
yeah,
that. And you're devaluing and diminishing the value that you have in yourself. So I encourage my clients to have more positive statements about themselves. So positive affirmations about themselves. So I am a coach. I am a professional coach. I am an award-winning coach. I put those adjectives, or is it adjectives, in
yeah.
front of my nouns, and I encourage my clients to do so as well, and to catch themselves when they hear them saying just, I'm just, or I'm only, or
Yeah.
I'm a little, or I'm not doing
I
it
do
that
think
long.
it's a product, though, of us as an island people, that we're almost apologetic for what we are or getting on.
I,
It's that affect the begrudger sort of
mm,
attitude
mm,
that we have
mm,
in this country
yes.
about, not liking to see a lot people get
Mhm,
on. And
mhm.
I love to see people
I
successful.
love to see people getting on. And, it's funny, I had this conversation earlier in the week as well about the word ego,
Yeah,
but there's kind of like a ego, pride, they're kind of nearly like dirty words,
yeah,
but there's a fine line between being arrogant and, you know,
being
uh,
confident.
overconfident, and not having the wherewithal to back those things up. But pride is a strength, pride in what you do, pride in your abilities, pride in the value that you can offer to somebody else. So it is important to have that pride, and to encourage it in others, as well, is a strength. And, it's important that you value, who you are and what it is that you have to offer the world.
Well, Valerie O'Hanlon, you were extraordinary to listen to. I've known you for many, many years. And when you work together in a place like Bunratty and you're in two different areas of it, you know people to see them more than sometimes you get a chance to actually sit down and have a chat about and know somebody at a deeper level, I suppose, than just seeing them or admiring them as a confident human being in that. But it's been a privilege talking to you. And
Thanks very much,
if
Mary.
people are trying to contact you,
So they can contact me on my website. It's Clarence, CLARENCE, clarenceconsulting.ie.
As in the lion, Clarence.
As in,
lion.
and that's the thing. It could be the Lion. I also, because I'm from Dublin, the Clarence Hotel, and then not that I'm a royalist or anything, but the Queen Mother used to live, I think, in Clarence House, and I just thought it gave it a kind of a little bit of gravitas, the word Clarence as well.
I'm a royalist. I love everything to do with the royal. I love the glamour. I love the glitz.
Yeah.
And I love.
So I liked the Clarence House piece.
Yeah, it's a great name.
But it is primarily Clarence, the Guardian Angel from It's a Wonderful Life. But you'll find me on LinkedIn. You'll find me on Twitter and Facebook. And you get me on my website, clarenceconsulting.ie.
Valerie O'Hanlon from Castleconnell in Limerick. Thank you very much for being my guest today.
Thank you very much for having me, Mary.
Shindera leis an chlár. That's the end of the show for today. Until the next time, Lacuna of Day. Bawalum tu galir chiacana, sonus agus gra. I wish you peace, happiness, and love. Agus gadei shif slán. Slán, Valerie.
Slán agus balance. You're welcome.